they'll just come in late. All right, let's get this show on the road. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ultra. I'm with El Paso County Democrats, and I just wanted to go over a couple of technical information pieces before we get started with this evening's event. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should have an unmute button and a start video. We ask for this first part of the evening that you leave both of those off, so leave yourself muted and without video. When we move into breakout rooms, we will certainly be able to open those up and have conversations and see other people. It just clouds the view for the full group with everyone's videos. Additionally, you'll see breakout rooms. We will move you into those breakout rooms after we've introduced all of our speakers for this evening. So you don't have to worry about that, but that's where the button is on your screen. And before we move into breakouts, we'll go into that movement a little bit more detail. Reactions, if you like something, if you want to react to something, feel free to use them on the screens. Your presenters will be able to see them during this first part of intros. And if for any reason you need to leave this evening early, you can click the leave button to the right. That will take you out of the room completely. If you want to come back in, you can. We do have the waiting room, and we'll get you set up and let you back in as soon as we take notice that you're in there. But feel free to leave if you need to for any reason. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to Amy Pascal, who is our first vice chair, and she's going to start the evening off. Thank you all for coming.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. As Ultra said, I'm Amy Pascal. I'm first vice chair of El Paso County Democrats, and welcome to our second Tuesday showcase. Tonight's topic is women's rights and universal health care. Thank you for coming. Everyone is welcome. The way our format works right now, which is this is our second month doing this, I think. We have a specific topic, then we have a group of speakers to speak on items related to the topic, and they'll each speak one after the other. And then we'll go into small groups and have small group discussions on the various topics. And also want to point out that there will be a post-event survey. We really encourage you to fill that out because that gives us feedback to help us get better. So that will be, I assume someone's going to post that in the chat so people can copy it. And we'll show this again towards the end. So if you can fill that out, we'd appreciate it. Firstly, I want to introduce our host, Randi McCallian. She is a public health professional and women's health advocate. She's worked in statewide perinatal quality improvement, directed multi-state maternal and child health programs, and served families and children in home and center-based programs with Early Head Start, supporting children with autism, as a birth doula, and as a lactation consultant. Randi has a bachelor's in psychology with a minor in biology from Drake University, a master's of public health from the University of South Florida, and is also an international board certified lactation consultant. Randi was the Democratic nominee for the Colorado State Senate District 10 in 2020. And she is currently advocating for policy changes to improve equity and justice around reproduction. So let's all welcome Randi.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. I am so glad to be here tonight with everyone. I really miss being with all of you. It's been so difficult. I hope your mental health and your heart is as well as they can be. Tonight, we are covering women's health, which to me is everyone's health, because we've all been born to a mother or to someone who our reproductive health system and maternity care system considers a mother. And therefore, women's health and maternal health is all of our health. This is an inclusive event tonight, as all of our El Paso County Democratic events strive to be. Everyone who joins humbly here is absolutely welcome. If we have any issues or anyone is causing too much trouble, we will ask you to leave, and we have some people who can boot you out. So everyone is welcome here if you come humbly, and even if you're uncertain of what you're asking, you are welcome if you seek discussion. I personally rotate between terms that I use. I work in maternity care most of the time, and maternity care is what most people understand when you're speaking about reproductive health care around birth. So I do use interchangeable terms like pregnant person, not just pregnant woman or woman giving birth, but a pregnant person or pregnant, or a person giving birth. Okay, so this field is among some of the most diverse, and I would like to talk first. I'm going to give you guys an overview of some areas in health and public health that I think will help us see things from a very broad perspective of health and healthcare, and how our well-being is influenced by so many things that I don't think we all think about all the time. Health is not merely the absence of disease, it's a complete state of well-being. So health means being well. Health does not just mean you aren't sick. And this is something we really need to change in our healthcare system, in our government, and in our own minds. We've been raised to believe that healthcare is something you get when you're sick. And when we talk about health, we generally think you're not sick. And really, health is being very well. And this comes into play for me when I see topics like LGBTQ discussions, where some people don't even recognize that someone being uncomfortable with how society describes them, or maybe with their own selves in their own body, how that impacts them not being well. They may not seem sick to some, but they're not well. Public health is defined as the art and science of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health. And again, we go back to what health means. And so I just want to really drill that in, because we get really stuck with sick talk and addressing having universal health care, for example, address sickness. And really it needs to address wellness so that we avoid sickness. That includes dental care, for example, vision care, for example. So this takes us to our next step, which I think is a really new thing to introduce a lot of people to, which is the life course perspective on health. And this is something that folks who are studying public health will learn very early on. This is, when you look at the image, there's a lot on it. So let's look at pieces just bit by bit to start understanding what this means. And for some of us, we've heard of things like epigenetics in the news over the last, maybe decade. And we're starting to better understand as a society what that kind of means. And epigenetics means that there's times in your life that there are things that can happen to your well-being and your health that will change your outcomes in life. And if you are malnourished as a child, for example, your brain cannot grow to its full potential. Those are epigenetic changes that can happen and be lasting through generations. So let's start at the top of this image where we have fetal and infant malnutrition in the green circle. And you see that there's lots of things coming out of that. So if there's fetal and infant malnutrition, so meaning that a pregnant person is malnourished, right? Because then the fetus is malnourished. You can end up with low birth weight. Low birth weight is strongly correlated with having more struggle in life. That may be in school, and that may be with your health and well-being. For example, more likely to have heart disease. So then you can see that if we start all the way at the beginning of life, which makes a lot of sense to many of us, if it's not a healthy, if a pregnant person can't have a healthy pregnancy, we know pretty well that that starts a baby off on a rough foot. But we can see how with this model that continues, and we really need to intervene quickly to stop a cascade of negative impacts that can continue happening to that person. You can also see, as we move around this, other things that influence someone's health. Child nutrition, not being able to pay attention in school as well, for example, and then you get in trouble more often, leading you down a little bit different of a path. That wasn't an individual child's choice whatsoever. Those are outside influences on that person that will impact the rest of their life. We can also see, if we get around the circle a little bit more into elderly malnutrition, that can lead to reduced ability for that person to contribute back to their family. Our elderly family members are supposed to be able to interact with their grandkids and to help pass on all that to the next generation, right? But if we've continued this cycle, or if someone's lived in a cycle of poverty or malnutrition their whole life, we can see how their life is cut shorter and their health is more challenging. And they'll have to have lots more healthcare follow-ups if they were to even have access to healthcare. And if they didn't, we know that's even worse. So my point with this, and hopefully what you're seeing, is that there's so many times in our lives where we can intervene to make someone's future health better and to make sure that we haven't had a negative impact from something that, you know, a traumatic event or a stressor, things like malnutrition. But I also want to show with this and remind everyone that changes carry on generation after generation. Remember that you existed inside of your grandmother as an egg. And we know that single cells are influenced by the health of what's around them. So as an egg inside your grandmother, you were influenced, and your future potential influenced by her environment. We can think of things like massive, horrible stressor events that can pass genetic changes on and struggle in worse health. And we can also think about just individual families and things that they may go through. So I hope that's clear, even though this is a really detailed image. It gives you a lot of information, but the simple message is there are so many opportunities for our health to be negatively impacted. And that's one huge reason why excellent universal health care is so important, because each person, each family, each circumstance is going to be different about when that person needs to reach out for well care and not just sick care. Okay. So let's take that message and understanding and think about a few more examples. I hope now that it's easier to conceptualize how the health of those who have been traumatized is worse. And it's not by their own doing. That growing up in a tough family situation where there's abuse and malnutrition is multiple hits on that child. It's malnutrition and, let's say, a verbally abusive situation. So their mental health is being knocked back so many rungs. And as a child in certain windows of opportunity, they may not be able to bounce all the way back to the trajectory that they would have been on had they been in a safer environment and had good food. And we know, especially as Democrats who are very empathetic and we do better at understanding other people's situations, we know that by supporting people, by supporting the family, and by making sure that we're not having to fight for resources, that overall the family's health and mental health is better. So if we as people and as a government can make sure that we are providing when well care and health care and necessary things are needed, like food, we are making a better trajectory. We are allowing that person to reach their full trajectory in life instead of knocking them down a few rungs before they've even entered society as a person. Slavery, things like the Holocaust, those are ones that on a public health level, I can look at and see how an entire culture of people will end up with worse health in a couple generations than those who weren't traumatized. We know that with slavery, which, you know, in our country was majority Black and African American people, we see now that Black and African Americans have much more barriers towards having good health, right? So we know that like hypertension and heart disease are higher among people of color. And I hope now that you've seen that life course perspective and thought about that a little, to place that seed in your mind of how 1 or 2 generations of people having access to resources cannot heal the genetic trauma and changes that happened before. That it will take so much time and access to wellness for those things to be healed. No access to healthy food, malnutrition, I think that one makes a lot of sense to us. And I'd like to also remind us then on that health course perspective that sometimes we get caught up talking about how if we could intervene during pregnancy, for example, we create better health outcomes, which is absolutely true, but it's also too late. So we need to do better, and healthcare can't just be at certain times and certain points of life, like, oh, you're 12 weeks pregnant, now you can get healthcare. 12 weeks pregnant is really late to intervene in the things that could have been intervened in before that baby was ever conceived. That's why we need universal well care for everyone. All right, Ultra. Okay, so a little tiny pivot from that. Where we will make these changes is from the state level up. We have, okay, I'm going to screen share real quick. Let's see if this, will this work, Ultra, if I do this, kick you off? I'm going to show you this. Okay, says you guys can see my screen, so hopefully that's true. I would like to show you this article, which you can go back to, and I have the link, you'll have the slides later, but change that we need to see at any level and for any topic that you're thinking of. So that may be firearm safety, that may be LGBTQ rights and civil rights, it may be voting, it may be something way more progressive than we say that those things are. Change happens from the state up. And so the way that you can be the most impactful is by helping Colorado lead in these issues. So when we look at interracial marriage, what we see here is that it takes a certain number of states, but that you don't have to get to 50 states before it passes federally. So here we had 30 states, 34, and then it passed federally. And that was a tough one, interracial marriage, and information spread really slowly back then. Let's get to women's suffrage. You had a couple states there at the beginning, and then it takes off, and less than 30 states, it passed federally. Abortion rights, you had 3 states, 5, and then we added them. All we needed were 17 states, and federally it passed. Same-sex marriage, 35 states, and we got success federally. So I show you this because we all feel and see sometimes that, there we go. We all feel and see sometimes that federal is where all of us are impacted, and we want to see the change federally. But ultimately, if we in Colorado can lead our state legislature to continue being one of those first states or one of the following states on other legislation, that then we will help to flip the federal government on a lot of these issues. Okay, I hope that got the, I'll just stop beating that one. So I want to share a little bit with you about my special topic. As many of you know, birth equity is very important to me because that is one early place that we can truly start making a change in the trajectory of people's entire lives. And it's an area where people of color, minority communities really face a lot of trauma and abuse. These are the 3 bills this year in the Colorado State Legislature that have the potential to make us leaders in this nation. There's a few other states leading the way on some of the parts that are in these bills, and we can be those first 5 and 10 states. Others will copy us, and these things will go federal. So I put the links here for you all to follow through. The 2 that really need your support a lot are 193 and 194, the second 2 there, protection of pregnant people in the perinatal period and maternal health providers. They're both in the Senate right now. They were just debated on the Senate floor, and they will be moving to the House. We really could use your support in getting these passed because there is some pushback even from Democrats because we know that change can be hard to accept sometimes. Okay, go ahead, Ultra. Oh, and I will say real quick on that last slide, the El Paso County Dems did endorse that birth equity bill package. So our logo is on that last slide in the image. And so, yep, thanks guys. So the state level action, one great resource that we have available for you here in Colorado is the colegislationtrackers.com website. It's the only website in Colorado that allows you to easily email the committee members when a bill is still in committee, when it hasn't even reached the floor yet. And that's, as we know, where a lot of progressive bills die, is they don't even make it to the floor. So this group is a few of us who are here tonight even help run this group. And you can go to the website and easily click on the links for the committee if you know where a bill is in committee. And we also post on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and you can easily click on or share any of those images. We track about 150 bills. So we try to make that really easy for you. So share it, and people can easily make their voice heard directly to who it matters. Okay, so my goal here with all that was to kind of give what is my expertise, is that broad public health background, so that as we talk about, as our presenters now talk about each individual topic that they're going to cover, you are able to see how, even if it doesn't impact you directly, that this is really important for the health of all of us and the health of future citizens and maybe even your grandkids. So this is a safe space. The presenters have heard everything. So if there's something you're confused about, logistics, terminology, things that you maybe hear the conservative right or Republicans say that confuses you, this is a safe space to talk about that and to ask. And tonight is about discussion, and we want you to feel like you can discuss. And we also want you to feel like you get the information you need, that you could start discussions with other people or engage in discussions with other people, because the way we make change is through communicating. So if there's any questions, I don't know if that's okay to do right now, or if you want me to move into speakers. Okay, I see a question real quick. Randy, why the wording on pregnant person? It seems to me that saying this doesn't acknowledge or recognize that women are the ones giving birth. Yeah, it's not always people who call themselves women or who view themselves or are a woman. Being a woman is actually more of a subjective thing. And some of our presenters are going to talk a little bit more on that in more diverse ways that may help expand what I'm saying. So it's not always a woman giving birth, it's a person is the most inclusive way, because we make assumptions about people if we just say it's only women giving birth. Though it is people with uteruses, not all people with uteruses identify as women. Hopefully that helps. Bye, Judy. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move into our introductions for our speakers tonight. Chandra, no, okay. Okay, so we have Dr. Christine Hembre. Said it right. Dr. Christine Hembre became interested in universal health care in 2015 after retiring from private practice medical care here in Sea Springs. The business environment had become combative, with insurance payers taking away the pleasure of being an independent business owner. Purchasing health insurance as an individual, middle-aged, middle-class taxpayer was eye-opening. Caregiving for her aging parents also deepened her appreciation for Medicare. Knowing our country has the finest care available, and yet so many unable to afford even basic medical needs, she is passionate about single-payer universal health care as a human right. So that's Dr. Hembre from El Paso County for universal health care. And then we will also have...
We'll give Christine a minute to introduce herself and then we'll move on.
That's right.
All right. I'm the first. So can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I want to just thank Chandra and Randy. And as you can see, I'm not an expert at these whole technical things, but I do appreciate being here tonight on a Zoom meeting with the Democratic interested people of Colorado Springs, because we have so many shared interests, women and people within the Colorado region, that I look forward to sharing those with you tonight. My journey was starting as a doctor here in this community. I trained in this community, and then I left medicine in 2013 because it got a little bit, like I said, contentious, and there was so many forms and arguments about payment, and it really just wasn't what it was when I started. And I think that's what I want to bring tonight, is my perspective spans decades, and they're important decades. And I appreciate the younger people that have interest in any of this issue about universal health care, because you're generally a group that are healthier, and you haven't really had the issues largely in your life that you'll have later in life as you age with your health. But you also don't have perspective. So I want to share my perspective, because I think it's really important to understand what happened to our country when private insurance started to have so much power. So I want to share that with people. And yes, I watched the costs increase. I want to share a little bit insight on that. I'm kind of a dork and a nerd about numbers. And so I don't want to share those. I don't want to share big numbers with you, but I like to share the concepts. So sometimes I think we share thoughts and concepts really easily that way. And the other thing to let you know is I'm a compassionate person. The reason I got involved in this is I'm a Christian Buddhist, and I really believe that we can do so much better in this country. So whether you have any spiritual leanings, I really truly believe that it would make a better culture for us. We would lose a lot of our inequities, and I will show you some of that tonight too. So thank you for letting me have this time.
Thank you, Dr. Hembre. So glad you're here. Okay, so our second speaker, I was out of order. Our second speaker is Alissa Smith from Inside Out Youth Services. And let's see, I'm gonna let Alissa introduce some of that Inside Out is here in Southern Colorado in El Paso County and is a wonderful organization that takes care of and helps our LGBTQ youth. Alissa Smith has lived in Colorado Springs for 25 years and has a passion for the LGBTQ community. A graduate of University of Montana, Alissa has been advocating for equality and equity throughout their life, volunteering with political campaigns and social justice organizations until shifting gears into news media in 2015. Alissa was most recently associate editor at the Colorado Springs Independent, where they founded, edited, and contributed to the paper's bi-monthly LGBTQ+ news and perspectives column, Queer and There. A married parent of 3 cats, Pearl, Miss Kitty, and Lord Byron Fitzwhiskers, and an unrepentant nerd, Alissa enjoys writing, reading, playing video games, and talking to anyone who will listen about Star Trek. Go ahead, Alissa. We can't hear you. There you go.
I am so sorry. Hi, everyone. Let me try that again. Thank you, Randy, and thank you so much for having me here, everyone. I am really excited to talk to you about some really important issues tonight. So first off, just to introduce myself and Inside Out Youth Services. So as Randy said, my name is Alissa Smith. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her, and I'm the communications manager for Inside Out Youth Services. So Inside Out was established in 1990 in Colorado Springs, and it is the only nonprofit in El Paso County that specifically serves LGBTQ+ youth. So our age range is 13 to 24, and we have a physical center in downtown Colorado Springs, and we also have online programming that we moved to during COVID, where we serve 350+ youth every year. So what we do in our center is we offer education, whether that is comprehensive sex ed or healthy relationship building, life skills education where the youth learn budgeting, or just general like peer support and adult support and connection. Like the community is incredibly important for Inside Out. We also do outreach, kind of like this, with our Safe at Schools Coalition and other kind of advocacy arms, where we go into schools and we do hotspot mapping, which is a state certified practice of identifying safe and less safe environments in a building or a community, and then giving recommendations based on that. We also offer trainings, which y'all might be interested in for yourselves, your organizations, your businesses, for LGBTQ 101, 102, and 103, as well as state certified trusted adults trainings. So obviously we get a little bit busy. So what I am here to talk about tonight is specifically healthcare for trans women and for trans folks in general. It's incredibly important when we are discussing healthcare for women that we're talking about trans women, if not centering them in that conversation, because the reality is that all of the health disparities and the lack of access that cisgender women face is faced in incredible amounts by trans women, and especially trans women of color. One thing that I do want to discuss tonight is reproductive health care, how it may be seen as a women's issue, but actually affects everyone of all genders. I really thank Randy for saying pregnant person, because it is true that trans men give birth and non-binary folks give individuals give birth. And so reproductive health care is huge, and access to that is huge for the LGBTQ community as well. So in our breakout room, we're going to be discussing some of the issues specifically facing trans women, both in general and also in the current political landscape. And we're going to talk about kind of the broader queer LGBTQ community and how healthcare and access to healthcare affects them. And I have spoken far too long. Thank you very much.
You're okay. We're doing good on time. Thank you, Alissa. Okay, so our third speaker of the evening is Nico with Planned Parenthood. Nico is an organizer, poet, and artist here in Sea Springs. the campaign organizer for Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains. In this role, they have created and/or facilitated program to destigmatize abortion, create a trans-inclusive reproductive rights movement, and empower activists to speak truth to power and their peers to create change in their community. In January 2017, they released Inauguration, winner of the Pikes Peak Arts Council 2017 Award for Best Publication, a collaborative book with Idris Goodwin, which celebrated resilience in the midst of the current political climate. The release show packed the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center in summer of 2017. They competed and won Capturing Fire, the National Queer Slam Tournament. They can be found at Nico the Poet on Instagram and Nico the Poet on Facebook. Welcome, Nico.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to give a quick introduction to Planned Parenthood because some people know about some of what we do and some people know about some other stuff we do, but I want to give you a comprehensive image of what our work looks like. Okay. So we were founded in 1916, Planned Parenthood as a whole, by Margaret Sanger in Brooklyn, New York. They distributed birth control advice, and birth control information, and the founders were arrested and jailed for violating the Comstock Act, which made birth control illegal. We officially became Planned Parenthood in 1942. Planned Parenthood has 57 local affiliates, such as Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains. They operate approximately 650 health centers, and 2.5 million people in the US visit Planned Parenthood health centers annually, and 1 in 5 women in the US has visited a Planned Parenthood health center in her lifetime. And I do just want to say, though, despite that statistic, we see people of all genders, and people who maybe were statistically counted as women may not have identified as women, just to clarify that. So Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains specifically was founded in 1916. We are the only affiliate with their centennial at the same year as PPFA's, and we were the Denver Birth Control League. Now we serve Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Southern Nevada, specifically Las Vegas. We have 17 health centers in Colorado, 4 in New Mexico, and 2 in Southern Nevada, and we serve more than 106,000 patients annually. I don't know what that was. So when we think about our work, we think of it as a 3-legged stool, because if you take away one of the legs, the whole stool falls over. Every component is incredibly essential to the work that Planned Parenthood does. And those 3 legs are advocacy, medical services, and education. I'll start with our medical services. So those are our health centers, the one that's over on Centennial, that's one of them. But we have quite a few in Colorado, and we offer STD and STI treatment and testing, contraception, such as the pill, the patch, the ring, the shot, long-acting reversible contraceptive methods, and emergency contraception. We also offer cancer screening and prevention services, abortion services, pregnancy testing and options counseling, and LGBT health services, including hormone therapy for transgender patients. These services vary between health centers based on the needs of the community. But if you ever are curious about whether our health center offers a certain procedure or a certain service, you can always call our call center, and they always have the answers for you. And then we have our education department. They are known as the Responsible Sex Education Institute, and they have community education services. So educators will work in schools, community organizations, and churches to provide group education to people of all ages. We have individual lessons. There's also Open Minds Family Talks, where educators teach parents and guardians about how to engage their children in a dialogue about sex and relationships. There's professional development for sex educators, known as the Sexual Health Educator Program. So if you work with youth and you work in sexual health education, or you want to incorporate that into your work, we offer that service. And then we also have an In Case You're Curious text line. This is a text line where youth can text and ask any questions regarding sexual and reproductive health, and they'll get an answer from a real person. And then we have advocacy. Advocacy consists of public affairs whose aim is to protect reproductive rights and expand access to healthcare services and education through electoral, legislative, and advocacy efforts. I'm with Public Affairs. Now, there are two organizations that work within public affairs. There's Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains, the 501c3. They do a lot of community organizing as well as health center advocacy, so sharing information about our health center services. And then there's the 501c4, which is the Planned Parenthood Action Fund, also known as Planned Parenthood Votes Colorado locally. And they do legislative advocacy, lobbying, candidate endorsements, and coordinated candidate campaign efforts. Some other activities that PPAF does is electoral work, so fighting ballot initiatives, endorsing candidates, voter education, and election activities, as well as legislative work such as promoting a political and regulatory environment that supports PPRM's mission and works to defeat initiatives that threaten the mission. And we try and serve as a trusted expert for decision makers. So when legislators are wondering, hey, this is being marketed as like a protect women sort of bill. Does it actually? Sometimes we can be like, actually, no, because those things can be very misleading. So that's a little bit about our organization. Oh, we also have some advocacy activities that the C3 side does, such as community outreach, campus outreach. We work a lot with Colorado College, for instance, in town, as well as HCAP, where people table in the health center, get our patients involved in health center advocacy, and we also go out into the community and tell them about our health services. And that's just a little bit about our organization.
Thank you, Nico.
So now that you've met all of our presenters, this is Ultra again, just want to give you a quick rundown on how the next section of the evening will run. You've all been pre-assigned by our wonderful Chandra into 3 breakout sessions. Some of you will stay in this main room, and the other 2 groups of folks will be pushed out to 2 individual breakout rooms. We are going to move the presenters. So you will be with the same group of people and you will get to see all 3 presenters for a small, about 15-minute discussion to continue on the topics that they have presented so far this evening, and for you to ask questions and be an engaged participant. And that is at the level that you are most comfortable with. So if you don't feel like talking in a particular session, you don't have to by any means, but this is your chance to have that small group feel that we've been missing for the last year and change. So once you get into the small group, feel free to unmute yourself, feel free to share your video, feel free to say hello to everyone else in the room and introduce yourself, and we will get the presenters moved into those rooms shortly. It takes us about 90 seconds or so to do that, and you will have time warnings pop up on your screen as we get close to the time frame to switch presenters. So you'll have a little warning to kind of wrap up conversations. When you come back after all 3 presenters, we'll bring everyone back to the main room. We have a little bit of closing information we want to give you, and then we're going to open what we're going to call open house conversations. So if anyone wants to stick around until the end of our evening, which is scheduled to be around 8:30, you are more than welcome to do so and chat with anybody else who sticks around, continue the conversation with presenters or with each other. Again, sort of if we were doing this in person, we'd all have that opportunity to kind of go say hello to people. So we want to try and make that happen for you as much as we possibly can. So give us just a couple minutes here to get everybody moved around into the right rooms. You'll see a box pop up. Click join if you're getting moved into the other rooms. If you don't see that box, then you'll be staying in the main room with us.
I believe we are a go for Nico in this room. Nico, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm starting in the main room.
Indeed you are.
Great, just to clarify. Okay, well, let me Let me get my PowerPoint.
You just want
set.
your blank slide, or do you have one?
Oh, I've got one.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. I'm going to be discussing the topic of abortion stigma, because abortion stigma is a huge barrier to accessing this really important healthcare service. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can be an ally to people who have had abortions and people who provide abortions in your life. So some housekeeping. Please put questions in the chat for me to answer, and then afterwards I'll answer those questions. You can also hop off mute later. I will just say I'll be answering questions made in good faith so as to make sure that we are moving in a progressive way towards the end of better allyship towards people who've had abortions. Please stay on mute to limit background noise. That's already been discussed. And if you have any questions I can't answer, I will give you the contact information of those who can. So why do we need to address abortion stigma? Well, here is a map of the US between 2006 and 2016. And you can see the color coding. Green are states that are supportive towards abortion, and this is in terms of the legislative climate. Are there a lot of barriers? Are there trap laws? Are there wait times, things like that? Also, is in terms of access, like, are there actual places where one can get an abortion in this state? And then versus the dark blue being extremely hostile. So between 2006 and 2016, we can see that a lot of states have gone to being incredibly hostile towards abortion access. I like to think that progress is linear, or at least I did until I saw this map. And I want to draw your attention to a couple states. So one is Arizona. Within 10 years, Arizona went from being a supportive state to abortion to being extremely hostile. I'd also like to draw your attention to Colorado and New Mexico and the ways that these two states are just amidst a sea of dark blue and are really holding it down in terms of abortion access. This is important because we see a lot of people from a lot of these other states. And the fact that people have to drive miles and miles, have to take time off work, maybe have to get childcare, all of these are huge barriers to abortion access. Also in 2015, there were 700,000 Google searches for DIY abortion. So as we can see, this is an incredibly dangerous matter, and it's really important that we can destigmatize abortion, normalize abortion services, and start to change the tide. In 2019, for instance, so just for some more recent statistics, 17 states enacted some type of abortion restriction, while 9 states protected or expanded abortion access. The thing is, a lot of this legislation that occurs in these states, including our own, it doesn't come from the people. It doesn't come from the constituents within that state. There are conservative think tanks that make these bills, that send them out just broadly and just try to see where it sticks. And they just keep on doing this every year. That's why we see the same legislation every year. But it's not the people. And when you look at the statistics around public opinion of abortion, it doesn't match what's happening legislatively. A big part of this is abortion stigma. Now, some definitions of abortion stigma. One is that it is a shared understanding that abortion is morally wrong and or socially unacceptable. Also, a negative attribute ascribed to women, just typically women, who seek to terminate a pregnancy that marks them as inferior to ideals of womanhood. Now, abortion stigma moves within a cycle. So for instance, people fear stigmatization for having an abortion. As a result, people then underreport or intentionally misclassify their own abortion, leading to abortion being thought to be uncommon when really 1 in 4 women have an abortion. Again, using women, but that's kind of in a statistical sense. This perpetuates the idea that abortion is deviant, then people who have abortions end up facing discrimination, which leads to people fearing stigmatization. We want to break this cycle. The groups most affected by this stigma are people who have had abortions, people who work in abortion services, supporters of people who have had abortions, and supporters of people who work in abortion services. Here are some ways that you can destigmatize abortion when it comes to the language you use with it and the work that you do around it. One is storytelling. So whether you have received abortion services or whether you have received any sort of reproductive health care, it's important to share that within the public discourse when you feel comfortable. So that can be talking to legislators, that can be talking to your family, that can be talking to your friends and just saying, you know, this is who I am, you know me, you know, and these are why I receive these services. And the reason this is so important is because political propaganda thrives on stereotyping and oversimplification. So the idea of, oh, someone is just doing this as birth control, or someone is being irresponsible, or something like that, when really there are so many reasons someone gets an abortion, and none of them are good or bad. They are just, like, people just get abortions, and we talk about that. We don't label abortions as good or bad. They're just abortions. And so when you share your story, people end up realizing, like, oh, you know, this isn't just a faceless idea of a person that I'm being marketed, that's being marketed to me as evil or wrong. This is my friend. This is someone I care about. It makes a huge difference. We also recommend saying the word abortion. I've said it so many times tonight, it gets easier. Sometimes we say reproductive health care or reproductive rights when we really do mean abortion or abortion rights. And it's, you know, depending on the context, do what feels good for you. But you can also say it. I'll tell people I'm pro-abortion. Some people have a hard time with that, but it really is true. I believe in this life-saving care. So I am pro-reproductive rights, but I'm also very much pro-abortion. So also just consider how language might distance yourself from abortion. So we don't say, for instance, abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. It should just be safe, legal, and accessible. Because when you say rare, that implies that there's something wrong, that it's happening. We also don't say abortion is only blank % of what we do. There may have been a time where some people have said that, but we don't say that anymore. Because for some of our providers, it is 100% of what we do, and we are so grateful to them for being there and doing that work. And then again, avoiding labeling abortions as good versus bad. We also don't say pro-life because it's a bit of a misnomer. You know, I think a lot of, we just say that people are anti-abortion because, you know, call a spade. And because when you say pro-life, it's like, are you pro-life or are you pro-birth? Are you, what about after that? You know, so much makes a life. And being pro-life, I believe people should be able to live their lives well. And that includes being able to access abortion services. So normalizing that these services occur, that 1 in 4 women get an abortion in their lifetime. In the past, it was 1 in 3. Now the statistic is more 1 in 4, and that is because of a lack of access. And then also reaching out to elected officials, telling them, hey, I'm your constituent. This is what I believe in. And also, you know, that doesn't just mean like reaching out to people when they do something bad. It also means reaching out to people when they do something good, like thanking legislators for being really progressive and really proactive when it comes to legislation surrounding reproductive rights and abortion. So those are just a few ways that you can be an abortion ally in your life. And I'm also going to share some resources here for storytelling. We have the 1in3campaign.org. They have people submit their stories either anonymously or with their names. There's also C-Chain, their untoldstories.us. There's Pro Voice, and there's also Planned Parenthood. You can share your stories with us, and we can work with you on sharing your stories at events or with legislators. And if that's something you're interested in, we have some upcoming events. So one is how to become an abortion and repro rights storyteller with Planned Parenthood. That's going to be May 25th, Tuesday, May 25th at 5:30. I will drop the link in the chat to sign up for that. Some other events we have coming up are a brief history of the reproductive justice movement. That'll be Wednesday, May 19th at 5 o'clock. And then in Colorado Springs here, we're going to have a Healthy Neighborhood Lit Drop. We're just going to go around and drop off some literature regarding our health services for those who need it. I'll also drop that link in the chat. And that's it from me. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to drop those links in the chat. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, also, I'm going to drop this link right here. This is so you can sign up. And if you have any interest in getting involved in our work, you can sign up to get on our mailing list to hear about events from me. And now I'm going to drop those other links in the chat. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
I always have a question.
Yeah.
So, well, here's my little story. As soon as I became a nurse, I worked for a small abortion clinic in DC, and literally it was underground. I don't think we could get a stretcher out, but it was difficult. But that's what I wanted to do. Like, that's why I went to nursing school. And that was my little story. And my question is, how are providers doing these days?
That's a good question. Also, thank you for doing that work. If you're interested in, I mean, we also really love to hear stories from providers themselves. So if you're interested in attending this workshop, I'd totally encourage you to sign up. How are providers doing these days? I mean, I think that in general, I can't speak for everyone who works within the organization. We have a lot of providers working at different levels of the organization. But I'd say that this time has just been incredibly difficult, regardless of the work that is going on within health centers, because we're going through a mass trauma. And I think that's worth noting. I think that a lot of this is getting boiled down to like burnout, when really it needs to be stated that we are going through a mass trauma. And the fact that providers are also experiencing like have to do a lot of emotional labor as a part of their physical labor. That's just on a day-to-day, COVID or no. So I can't say whether our providers are necessarily doing well or not. Like I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe.
Are there still providers willing to do this work?
Absolutely. And that's what I want to say is I am so amazed by the tenacity and resilience of the work that providers do, and especially providers here in Colorado Springs who serve a really wide range of people, just because we don't have a lot of health centers around. We just have the one. And so the fact that they see a lot of people and they do such amazing work and they just show up every day to do that work because they care about their communities. And so I'm always in awe, and I'm so glad to know them and work with them.
So is the only place to access abortion services in El Paso County through the Planned Parenthood on Centennial? Are there any other avenues? Do any of the hospital systems support it? Just, do you have any sense of that?
You know, that's a good question. And while I don't know entirely, because, you know, gynecologists can offer abortion services, but they may not advertise it for fear of some of the backlash that occurs at a Planned Parenthood health center, for instance. So there can be more private providers that do offer those services. I'm just not entirely sure. I don't believe our hospitals do, but I can check in on that and get more information for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've got only about 30 seconds. Nico, if you can answer, is ALEC the group, the American Legislative Exchange Council, that pushes a lot of these, or is there a different group that's doing the reproductive rights ones across states?
So I'm primarily a community organizer, and I don't do as much with our legislative side of things. I'd say that it's probably a few, but Alec does seem like a big one.
Okay. I watch them closely.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it in the language, like it might be slightly customized between states, but oh, I'm getting moved. But
Hi, Nico.
Nico.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice talking to y'all. I don't know how I guess I'm just
She'll move you.
waiting.
It's an awkward moment where you're like, what? And then you'll just disappear.
Oh.
Is this our group? Or we stick with this group and the presenters come in?
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah. It's actually, it's a better way to do it.
This is fun.
Yeah.
We get to see each other a little longer.
Hi.
Hi, Alissa. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good to see everyone. Hope y'all are having fun.
Sorry, remember that you're in the lobby now, so this one's recorded.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
Excellent. No pressure. I got this. So first off, thank you everyone so much for having me, for inviting me, and for being here to listen and take. I want to keep this kind of informal. I'd love to leave a lot of time and give a lot of opportunity to answer your questions. So just to reiterate, because it's been a bit, Alissa Smith, my pronouns are they, them, or she, her, and I am the communications manager for Inside Out Youth Services. And we're going to be talking about healthcare for trans folks, specifically trans women, but most of the issues we're discussing across the board affect the trans community. So before we begin, I want to reiterate that this is a safe space. I want you to ask any question that you have been curious about, anything that comes to your mind. If it's embarrassing, if you've been worried it might be offensive, I got you. So, and I might not be able to answer everything, but I will try. Also, before we begin, I would love to know kind of y'all's familiarity with the LGBTQ community. So if you could drop in the chat, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, and 10 being I'm an expert and I could be giving this presentation. If you could just drop that in the chat, that would be super helpful. No need to if you're uncomfortable, but it would help me. Thank you, Amy. Awesome. Thank you, Randi. Thank you, Ultra. Thank you, John. All right, so it looks like we're all kind of around the same sort of like mid-range level. So I guess first then I would like to start by just kind of defining transgender, right? So a trans person is simply put, someone who does not identify with the gender they were assigned at birth, right? So we're all assigned a gender when we're born, male or female, right? A trans person could be someone who was born female, they were assigned female at birth, but then grows up, explores their identity, realizes that they are actually male. Or it could be someone who was assigned male at birth and they grow up, explore their identity, and realize they don't fit either of those. They aren't in the binary, because gender is a spectrum, right? So then they identify as non-binary or genderqueer or any of the other identities under that umbrella. It's a big umbrella, so I won't go into all of them. And so trans women face many of the same disparities that cisgender women do. Cisgender just means you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth. And most of the population is cisgender. There was a study done that says that 0.5 to 0.6% of the population identifies as trans. The numbers are likely a lot higher, partly because discrimination. Trans folks are very reluctant to come out, especially however the survey was taken. They may not have trusted that that would be confidential, right? And partly because there is a huge lack of education. So many people are out there who may not even have a word for what they're feeling. They may not even know where to access resources. And I got a message from Bethany. Why do they call it cisgender? IS gender? And to be honest, I don't know the etymology behind that. That is not something that I have looked into. Maybe Randi does with medical knowledge. No? Okay. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Randi. I was like, maybe someone with medical training. No.
And you've cleared that up for me because I never knew. Okay, this is not true. I kind of didn't know what it was.
No,
It
that's
just means it's cisgender or the people that identify with their gender at birth.
exactly. Yeah.
I learned
Someone stamped an
something.
F on your birth certificate and you're an adult now and you're like, yeah, I'm a woman.
Oh
I'm
my
a female.
God.
Yeah.
I missed that when they, when they told us this. I missed the definition like a long time ago. And
Oh, well, I'm glad
now,
you helped.
and now people use it and I have no idea what it is. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're right. The pronunciation is super misleading because like SIS gender, like sister gender. Like I can see why that would be super weird. But no, CIS
All right.
gender. And now I'm gonna look up the etymology of that after this because I genuinely have no idea and now I'm curious. All right. So actually, before I go forward, then, are there any other questions about just kind of like trans identity or anything I can answer for y'all?
I have a question. So when you say gender assigned at birth,
Mhm.
are you talking about like assigned by nature or assigned by some human somewhere that went, that's an F?
Yeah, thank you for asking. That's a great question. All of our genders are assigned by the doctors who birth us, right? So someone did, look at the baby's genitals and say, looks like a penis or looks like a vagina. A really sad reality of that is intersex individuals who exhibit sex characteristics that could be determined like biologically male or biologically female, which are misleading terms anyway. They often suffer genital mutilation as babies to get their genitals to look more like genitals that should be male or should be female. So yeah, it's a whole issue that's also huge when we are talking about women's healthcare.
Alissa, I'll go ahead and ask mine then.
Yeah.
So I know I've done some birth certificate research, right? And in public health, we use birth certificates to guide us. And there have been changes over time because we realized that we weren't collecting enough to know anything. Are there any states that aren't just male-female selection for gender? And if there aren't, are there other countries that have done this differently? Because it sounds to me like something we need to advocate for is changing that there are only two choices on the birth certificate, because in part that is guiding a medical doctor or a family to choose one of the two. And because you have to, I mean, we make it a law that you can't not fill out a birth certificate. So yeah.
As far as I know, Colorado does not have like an X option on birth certificates. It does on driver's license, it does on passports. So that X option is there, into adulthood. But as far as I know, you cannot get it changed to X on your birth certificate. And even then, I can't quite imagine that it would be something that would just like happen naturally when a baby is born. Like it's something you'd have to go back and be like, actually, I am non-binary, or, what have you, and then go with the X. So as far as I know, there is not that option. I might be wrong about that because I have not kept up the last, few months. So if something has changed.
So for like intersex babies though, where it's not clear,
they choose.
Well, I shouldn't even say not clear.
I'm wondering how educated are pediatricians these days on this subject? Because that's the people that you need to educate, because those are the ones that choose the gender.
They don't even get breastfeeding education in their pediatrician degree. So doubt they get anything about.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we're talking about like intersex issues or LGBTQ issues, finding culturally competent care is very difficult. And it's one of those things that like, if you do find it, odds are you aren't going to be able to access it. And we can talk a little bit more about that and kind of the access barriers. But it's not going to be something that is just taught, it's not part of a curriculum yet, which it should be. But John, I saw you unmuted. Did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the topic of definitions, one that I've always been just a little unclear on is when a person is identifying as trans, how is that different than when a person's identifying as queer? How are those two terms similar or different?
Excellent question. I'm so happy to go into that. So queer is kind of an umbrella term that encapsulates gender and sexuality, right? So if you imagine this big umbrella, and then on this side we've got gender, on this side we have sexuality. So someone could be trans and a lesbian, or they could be cisgender and straight. Well, I guess that wouldn't go under the queer umbrella, would it? But anyway, so there's kind of a separation there between the two. And then transgender specifically related to gender. That is someone who, their gender identity does not match what they were assigned at birth. Some folks are not okay with the word queer. We try to default to LGBTQ+, because queer has often been used as a slur and used against folks, and some people just aren't comfortable reclaiming that. Other folks, like, I love that word for myself because it encapsulates both gender and sexuality. And it's like, gender is weird. So who really knows? And I identify as a lesbian. So it's so much easier to just say I'm gender wiggly and a lesbian to just say I'm queer. Like that makes it a lot easier.
Thank you. That's a great, very clear explanation. Appreciate
good.
it.
I ramble so much. I'm never sure how
No,
clear
no, you
I
did
appreciate you.
really well. You clarified some things in my mind. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Any other questions before we move forward?
I had a question, but I think you addressed it, but I just want to be sure. Because I had this conversation with my kids and none of us knew the answer. And it was, if someone is trans, if you refer to somebody as trans, does that mean that they have undergone a sex change, physical sex change operation? Or does it apply to anyone that just identifies differently than how they were assigned?
That is such a great question. Fact of the matter is, a lot of trans folks choose never to medically transition, right? So when it comes down to it, if they say I am trans, they are trans, and that's like all it takes. A lot of folks say, well, they have to feel dysphoric to feel or to be trans. That means they have to like have issues with their body as it is, and that's not true either. Some trans folks may love their body. It's just they take issue with, being seen as female or being seen as male. So yeah, anyone who identifies as trans is trans. Does that answer your question? Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And so while we're on the subject of surgeries, 3 minutes, okay. No, I actually love this. Like, thank you so much for asking questions, because this is, why we're here, right? And I'll drop my email in the chat before I leave, so y'all can just email me if you have any others. Anyway, so on the subject of surgeries, this is one of the areas in which trans women and trans folks in general have so much issue accessing healthcare because insurance is not required to cover these surgeries. And the fact is they are life-saving. There was a survey done in the UK where 67% of people who had medically transitioned, who had gotten to a point where they were happy with their bodies, 67% of them said they were far less suicidal after transitioning than they were in the beginning. And suicide, mental illness, self-harm, all of those are pervasive in the trans community. And so having access to these surgeries is absolutely life-saving for folks. So it's difficult for trans folks to, I guess, justify the fact that they need to have this surgery for their own mental health, their own physical health, their own well-being, because they're just trying to survive, And then while we're on the subject of just like medical care in general, trans folks are also far more likely to face unemployment. So quick show of hands, like, have you ever gotten insurance through your employer? Yeah. So imagine rates of unemployment for trans folks, white trans folks, are double that of cisgender people, right? And then rates of unemployment for trans folks of color are 4 times the rate. So these disparities are huge and real. They can't even get access to general medical care, let alone trans specialized care. And that's something that, yeah, greatly affects their health, and more likely to live in poverty, more likely to have the negative outcomes associated with that. It's a lot. And, you know, we're really failing our trans community.
Alissa, a lot of what you said, I really, for my public health broad mind, pull back up into that life course perspective and back up into also the definition of what well care and public health and healthcare is, and that you don't have to be sick to get well care and to be well. And so I really feel that is that with the trans community, being well is being healthy. You shouldn't have to be struggling and sick or suicidal to do what makes you well.
Absolutely. So often we intervene when it's too late. You know, one thing that Inside Out, oh, we'll talk about Inside Out another time.
Thanks,
Thank y'all so
Alissa.
much
Oh no.
for your questions. I appreciate y'all very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'll drop my email. Group. Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. That was great.
How do you feel about Middlesex? Are you gone? Is she gone?
She's
Darn
gone.
it.
There's Christine.
Darn it.
Hi, Christine. Welcome to
Hi, who's
the
gone?
main lobby. Remember,
Hi.
this is the one that you're
Alyssa.
recorded at.
Alyssa, the Inside Out girl, we had I had a lot of questions.
Oh, you did. You would.
I know. That's what I said. I'm like, oh, I always have
That's my
questions.
sidekick, Bethany Winder, RN. I'm
Hello.
Dr. Christine Hembre.
I'll
And
have
I,
lots
you
of
know, I
questions.
think that I could tell you, you know, by my, I don't know, it was 20 plus years of private practice that I understand insurance and how it changed. And there are plenty of statistics to show you that insurance has changed, and the administrative requirements for running a practice can be overwhelming. So doctors became employed. The shift from 20% employed to 80% employed happened in the last 15 years. And it happened because it just got complex and difficult to manage all this insurance billing. I had 2 offices, one and two of us, one in a mid-level, and we had 2 billers. Why did I need to have a 1-to-1 ratio? I thought it was just me. And then I met other practices, and that's absolutely the way it is in medicine at that time, before this corporate takeover, was that we used to have about a biller for every doctor that worked, just a full-time person sending out bills and collecting. And that's a real hassle. So the corporate takeover took away that worry for doctors, employed them with the paycheck, gave them other incentives along the way. But I just asked in the other group, you know, put a thumb up. How many of you have had a change in your clinic's name or the provider in the last 5 years? And like, you know, everyone has. So it's this fish eats a fish corporate model where it just keeps passing hands and growing in administrative complexity. And we end up paying for that because the way it's structured is they're allowed to take 20% profit. So if you're having a barbecue conversation this summer, just, you know, just talk about that. You know, isn't that kind of a crazy number that they can take? They're allowed that. We know they do other things, marketing and trips and buildings and all sorts of other ways, employment incentives, to take other amounts of money out of the system. But they're allowed 20 and they take it. And when I say they, the 4 top health insurance providers in America. And, you know, 20% is a big chunk, and they take it out. And we can do Medicaid and I'm sorry, not Medicaid. We can do Medicare administration for 4%, under 4. I think the number's 3 something. And we do it well. Countries model after us. So when you look at those numbers and talk about just those simple numbers over the barbecues this summer, get some enthusiasm, because the problem we have is legislation is slow and onerous, because the legislators have been funded in their campaigns funded in different ways by the hospital associations, the big pharma, and by the health insurance industry. So that's a big voice. Just recently, many of us got this ad. And this ad sounds so like, oh my gosh, I should just never want this. You know, it scares the devil out of you, from Colorado Healthcare Future. Well, this group is big corporate, and it funded $7 million against Colorado's attempt to get an option. And what we would ultimately like is an option so that those of us that don't qualify by income level and those of us that don't qualify by age could have something we could afford. It's just that simple. I couldn't afford it. I was out on my own with a daughter, and I wasn't working. And I'm telling you, it was very shocking to see those numbers and then to see them rise 20% each year. And to realize that we don't have any voice in this. It wasn't because I was using it. I was healthy. It was going up for no explained reason. And in Colorado, we had a bill that made them explain it, recently raised by the council person that was in my area at the time. So we don't have much say. And I think we should recognize that. You're afraid to have the government take over. We don't have any say now.
Because of that flyer and because of all the commercials they did, they're on my weather app. You know, this is going to close hospitals and make doctors not want to come here.
Right.
They watered it down. So the Colorado public option is like a big old poop.
Yep. They watered it down now. And what Bethany's talking about, I think most of you might know this, but it got watered down to where the insurance company has a couple of years to reduce their costs and offer us a better option. Just, you know, it seems rather holding hand of them.
And I'm sure, sorry, I'm sure you guys already know this, but I have some family in some of those major health insurance companies. And I was also recently at a doctor's office with my kids. I saw by both groups the emails that were sent to employees of the system telling them to reach out and say no. And there was a link to email your state legislators about it. So someone very close to me sent that email to me that they were being told to fight this, that their company that employed them would be at risk and that this was bad for healthcare. And then they were given the link to contact. So I say that too on this recording so that people know you have to fight back by reaching out and supporting these bills, because these major companies have 100,000 employees and they send these emails out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pervasive. It really is. The system employs a lot of people, and I do hear it. I do hear people say, well, what will happen? Because I can show this complex system of, you know, the tree of administration and this whole level, you could say, well, we won't need it. Like in my last session, a person said they had a conversation with someone from New Zealand who said, well, you know, in my hospital, the billing department is a little room and one person for the whole hospital. You know, like it isn't complex. It doesn't need to be when the system gets single payer and straightforward like Medicare, where it's a 4% administration. So we would lose all this layer, right, of employees. What do we do? It's like this, oh my God. What we do is we allow them to get good paying jobs. And even some of the bills have a structure of money put aside to help for re-education, is to get good jobs in healthcare, providing care, providing something helpful. You don't have to lose your job. You'll get a job. It'll just be something that helps this larger group of people that are now going to have access actually have care. It won't be this confounded way of working in a system that employs a lot of people to prevent you from getting your benefits that you need, or you know, really administrating a system that's so complex with co-insurance and co-pays and deductibles that they need all these people to be punching in numbers all the time. So, you know, I'd love to hear from you, any of you that want to share stories of the complex system interactions you've had, because it's a really onerous system and it doesn't have to be this way. That's what Bethany are trying to say is, you know, we really, with universal health care, it can be simple. Imagine the benefits to women. 800,000 of us just out of the workforce during COVID. think of that, you know, you now, if we had universal health care, wouldn't have to run back to that job because you have to have health insurance. You could reformulate the family system. How do you really want it to be? The freedom that you would have if you weren't tied to employment for health insurance.
Talk
And
about
it's
your
just-
Make the Break campaign and your little ads and
Well, that's kind of coming. Bethany and I are trying. I'm trying to get this thing out that I just feel like we need to have a grassroots chant, something like Brexit. We just need something that we can say to each other so that we really tell each other we can do this. So I started this small campaign. I'm trying to get GoFundMe money called Let's Make the Break. Let's make the break, because I believe we can do it. I really think if we imagine it and imagine the benefits, we don't have to talk about anymore how much we can afford it. It's ridiculous. We pay too much. We don't have to talk about that anymore. If you need me to do the math for you, I will. It's in $1 trillion and it's kind of complex to talk about it, but the savings are in tens of billions of dollars. So we pay too much. It's not about can we afford it? It's about can we change? And when the American people put their heads together and they say we can change, we'll do this.
And I liked Randy's chart that you put up about
Yes.
that was it's so encouraging to hear something positive. Like, you know, we're putting in a lot of work here, but, you know, it'll just be increments here and there, a couple of states here and there, maybe not a couple, but more than a couple, but maybe not that many, maybe not all of them. And then we could, you know, in our lifetime, maybe.
I think some people worry too, like, well, we can't get this done federally because we have this many red states or conservative states that just won't agree. But when you see that most of the big social changes we made needed only about 30 of the states, we don't need them.
Yeah. And you know, the polling doesn't show it's so divided though, too. You know, it's 56% of Americans that want to change in the healthcare system. So it's a lot. It's just that the voice gets muted by this $7 million infusion over a bill that was even, you know, got so watered down, it doesn't even look the same. You know, so it's difficult when there's that much force, but it is going to come from the people and we want it. So it is going to come. We wanted women to vote. We wanted, equal rights for interracial marriage and genders. And, you know, we've made a lot of things happen at state level. We'll do this. I do believe that. And I think it's going to happen soon. This kind of bill that allows, did I read this in this group? I forget which groups I've said this. Have I read to you about our newest kind of coming down the pipeline? Okay, so it's going to be titled, just to understand it, the State-Based Universal Health Care Act of 2021. And what it's going to do, it's going to create a policy that states can withdraw, make a waiver from the ACA. And by doing that, they would allow them to have access to that money if they can create a plan that is as good as what the ACA was providing, but provided to the entire state. So it allows that federal money that was going to come to the ACA to be used in the calculation of how a state could fund its option, what we call option, this universal plan for everyone. So this is a new legislation that's important, and it probably won't. It'll have trouble passing, but it's important, and it's going to be pretty widespread supported because it's a minor. It's not a major change. It's a minor change. So it's this little notch that's needed to make us be able to move forward.
That's a federal legislation that's being proposed.
I saw it's a PL. PL 111-148, and I don't really know what that means.
Okay, yeah.
I got it off of.
Oh, is it not just? It's not just Colorado based.
No, I don't believe so. I got it off of one of my national advocacy groups, I believe.
Ooh.
It seems like a
So
policy brief to help guide you at a state level for state legislature, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, because we all know the ACA is not 100%.
Yeah, and that's important for everyone to understand it in your conversations at picnics this summer is, you know, expanding the ACA expands the coverage for people in the lower income levels. And perhaps to some with some significant illness that puts them at risk of losing income. So, you know, we understand it's important. Oops, did I get her in? Did she come in? We understand it's important to cover those folks, to help everybody. But there's a big group missing. The people that can't afford coverage are usually in middle income levels. They are paying, I calculated today, I tried to apply for ACA coverage and use some different numbers of income. And what it comes up to is about, you end up paying about 20% of your income to private insurance premiums when you're privately buying outside of the ACA. And I just think that's just shocking that that's asked of some people in those middle income, lower middle income levels to spend 20% of their income on a premium, because those premiums then come with deductibles and co-insurance. So we can do so much better in our private budgets that the women in the household manage often. They're often women that do some of this household calls to the insurance companies to battle over some of these, what does this bill mean? And why am I paying this? So I think women are really engaged in this universal healthcare conversation because it impacts us. We want the freedom in our lives, freedom away from employment-based insurance, health insurance. We want healthy kids. We want
when
healthy
women
babies.
are having to choose between their jobs and staying home with their kids and doing, e-learning, it's a little bit difficult because then, they don't have their insurance either.
Right.
No job, no insurance.
And there's hundreds of
Stay home with
thousands of
kids.
caregivers that stay at home with, that work a job and then take care of their parent, or some other loved one with a significant illness. And, we really can change the system to be much less stressful for everyone.
Dr. Hembre, you touched a little bit ago on telling your stories with healthcare and if you have something happening and you're trying to see the doctor, what is it like for you? And I know for a lot of us that want something done that's not an emergency, right? So I have a varicose vein that has caused me pain for a long time.
You only have a few seconds left.
Trying to get that taken care of is just insane.
Yeah.
And so sharing that, I think one key piece though, is that people think government-led will be worse.
Right.
We need to remind them that right now there's a middleman. We need to remove that middleman and it will be easier.
Right. It isn't not complex now. It's complex as heck. And it is, it's difficult already. So it can't get too much worse.
People I work with, they have to wait for surgeries, just like people
months.
Months. And so do people in other countries with universal healthcare.
Welcome back to the lobby, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Hembre. That was great.
Thank you.
Okay, Chandra says we will have some time to talk with everyone again at the end of the program. You can ask more questions, and if the presenters can stay, that would be great. And we have a little bit more to say here.
Alissa, I have a question.
Okay,
Sure
hold
thing.
one moment. Can you hold one moment?
Yes.
Everybody in, thank you. Okay, we will go ahead now. Thanks.
Alissa, what do you think about Middlesex, the book Middlesex? Have you read that? I read it a long time ago.
I have actually never read it. I keep passing by it on bookshelves. Like, I should pick that up. But
It's
never
an
happens.
old book. It's a book about that, the baby's born. The doctor goes, I don't know. He looks like maybe it's a boy. And they stamp boy, and there's a really good book about it. I think, it's called Middlesex.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. I was able to be with each presenter in the discussions and they were absolutely fantastic. Everyone did amazing. We had Dr. Christine Hembre for Universal Healthcare. We had Alissa Smith from Inside Out Youth Services, Nico from Planned Parenthood, and that post-event survey link, I'm sure will be dropped in the chat here soon. And if you could fill that out, that would be great. And Chandra, is this when we get to discuss, or are there more slides we need to cover real quick?
We have a couple more slides. Amy's got a couple things to touch on as well. And you've still got one, you've got your follow-up.
Oh, thank you. There we go. So that's one I showed you earlier, but was asked to make sure everyone knew this existed. Please share this website. And if you're on Facebook and Twitter now, we have both of those for co-legislation trackers. And it is such an easy way to share a bill and help people engage with their state legislators on that bill. We track them step by step so you can engage at the committee level to help get a bill out of committee, and you can engage at the floor level when a bill is on the House or Senate floor.
Amy.
So again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. If you are interested in getting more involved with the Democrats, either at the state level or the county level, there are oodles of opportunities. Listed here, we talk about the Colorado Dems has a women's initiative. There's their Facebook page. If you're interested in joining, there's many initiatives at the state level. You can look at the website coloradodems.org, and the list of all their initiatives are there. If you are interested in getting involved in an initiative at the county level, there's our email address. If you want to email the El Paso County Democrats and find out what kind of initiatives we have and where you could get plugged in, you can drop us a line there. Liz, we haven't gotten to that page yet. She's so excited. So you can find us, the El Paso County Dems, that's our website at epcodemparty.org. There you can find out the events that we have upcoming. You can also find all kinds of information about past events, including this one. The slides are up there already. The post event survey is up there. And as soon as the recording gets completed, we'll get that up there as well if you want to watch it or recommend it to somebody. Our next Second Tuesday showcase is coming up on June 8th. The topic is Acknowledging the Struggle, a conversation about Black political efficacy and voter engagement. Other dates for Save the Date, we are going to be having our gala and fundraiser in October, October 23rd. So it's not too soon to mark that off in your planner. That'll be a dinner and an auction, silent auction. I think it's all silent. We also have, if you happen to be a member of the Central Committee, we have a date for our next Central Committee meeting, which is going to be August 21st, which is a Saturday. So you might want to pencil that in as well. Also, as Liz says, become a volunteer. El Paso County Democratic Party is 100% self-funded and 100% volunteer run. So we need whatever you got to contribute, your time, your talent, your monetary gifts. We appreciate all contributions. And yes, we have over 100 unfilled precinct organizer positions. So if you are interested in being a precinct organizer for your own precinct, or if you're in a precinct that happens to be blessed with 2 precinct organizers already, you can adopt a precinct. I
might have gotten my dentist to pick up his precinct.
Woohoo! Bethany is the star precinct organizer recruiter. Awesome. But if you guys are interested, if anyone here is interested, you can email us at epcdems@gmail.org. And I'm sure they'll send it over to me and we will get you fixed up. And there's the survey link also in the chat. The survey link is in there. I think this is my last slide. I'm not sure. Yes. So now I guess if anybody has any further questions they want to ask, now is an excellent time.
And we could throw you into a breakout room if you needed us to. And I don't know if we want to stop the video, the share as well, Chandra.
I have already done so.
You're awesome. So yeah, if anybody sticks around to ask questions, now's your chance.
So people could